Dan Greenberg, better known as Greenie from Barstool Sports, the Celtics expert, the kingpin of Boston Celtics online, Celtics Twitter, and friend of the Cam Show. Greenie, just before we get into this, how are the emotions this morning?
I'm all over the place, to be honest.
Always.
I'm not on a ton of sleep. This is like, they say the kid before Christmas, kid before Hanukkah, whatever you want to go with. That's where I've been. I rewatched Game 5 last night to sort of set the mood.
How many times is this?
Oh God, I don't even know. I'm embarrassed to say, so we'll just go with that.
A couple of times.
It's one of those things where, I think back to where I was. I mean, I was 21 years old, living in my college house in Tempe, Arizona, the last time this happened. So the fact that it's been 16 years is it's surreal. I can't believe it's real. It's like, in 12 hours, we're going to be watching them raise it to, it's unbelievable.
It's so cool. And I think it's funny that you say that about like where you were the last time, because 16 years, that's a good stretch. It's not the longest streak ever, which some people have kind of made fun of. Oh, Boston fans, 16 years, they think it's 80. It's a decent stretch because I was 10 the last time they won it. So I remember being in 5th grade the last time they won this thing. So it does feel like a lot of life has happened since then. A lot of life has happened. And now they will raise the banner tonight. And it's against the Knicks. Obviously, great matchup right out the gate. And we remember the last time, Paul Pierce, real emotional. The tears coming down, just showing that ring, man. I imagine they'll probably have Bob Cousy in there if he can get there tonight. Obviously, real old guy. But Bob Cousy was famously saying in June, like, hey, just win one more for me. I don't have a lot left. Win one more for me. It's going to be a super emotional night. And I want to look at it because when I watched the 08 one last night on YouTube, and they brought out Havlicek and Cousy and Satch and all that. And it was like, what was so special about that team was then, Paul Pierce now gets to be in that echelon. Gets to walk amongst the greats in Celtics history, and obviously Garnett now and all the guys on that team. And it felt like they had worked so much and done so much just to get the Celtics back to relevancy, let alone obviously winning the title. With this one, it feels like it's going to be great to see Tatum and Brown and Horford and all those guys do the same thing, get to walk amongst the greats in Celtics history. But it also feels like this shouldn't be the last one in this stretch. Like, we should have another night like this. Is that too greedy of me to think of, Greenie?
No, but I would,
we should enjoy this one first.
Exactly. 16 years ago, we thought this was the start of the Big Three trio winning a couple. I think having it have been so long and having multiple years where you lost in the finals, I enter this year more as stay in the moment, appreciate this for what it is. And then the second the banner goes up, it's on to I'm not even allowing myself to think of what could follow tonight. I just want to get through tonight in one piece. They won 16 years ago on banner night. They beat LeBron and the Cavs, but they've also gotten killed on the last 2 jersey retirement nights they've had.
True,
so let's beat the Knicks. Let's, calm down all of their preseason hype and remind them sort of who runs the NBA at the moment. But I just think, the second I see Al Horford get his ring and start wheeling up the banner, I am just going to lose it. I think what makes this year different is obviously their 2 best players are homegrown. Like, we had Pierce the first time, but this is different. We've seen Tatum and Brown from summer league to year 7 and year 8 where they cemented themselves. I mean, that's really what this title did, was it solidified their spot in the rafters next to Pierce, next to Garnett. Their numbers are retired. So in a sense, anything they do from here on out is like house money. It's gravy. They're stamped and they're cemented. But I can understand your desire to be greedy and say, hey, they're only 26, 27. Their roster's locked in for the next few years. And really, barring injury, like catastrophic injury, not just Porzingis, nobody in the league has really closed the gap from what we saw last year, until we see it play out. But as of now, there's still like a Grand Canyon-sized gap between them and everybody else.
All right, this is important because I was going to save this for later, but this is good. It's specifically looking at the team tonight, the Knicks. All these teams, obviously the Eastern Conference specifically, I've been chasing the Celtics from free agency, the draft, making trades, all of it. So we obviously get the bombshell a few weeks ago with the Karl Anthony Towns trade. And I know you've looked at this several hundred times. Did the Knicks get better or did they win the trade? Could be two answers here.
I mean, I think it's those two questions are hard to answer until we see it, right? Like you can do on paper, their talent is better. They got the best player in the trade, which theoretically means you win it. So I'll just say they're different, right? Because what was such a huge strength for them last year was their toughness, their tenacity on the glass, especially the offensive rebounding, the continuity that they had. Those are all things that are real factors in the success of a team. So, we have to see how the chemistry issue now plays out. There were questions how they were going to replace Hartenstein's rebounding, and now they bring in Cat, but you lose potentially some defense and toughness there. On the flip side, there's no denying that offensively it makes them way more dynamic, way tougher to guard. It creates space for Brunson to get into the paint, which he's one of the best players in the league at getting to and finishing in the paint. So it's hard to say whether they're good or not. I mean, I still think they have issues, right? I think they're going a lot off name recognition as opposed to current production. But I mean, when you're in this opportunity and you have a chance to swing for the fences, I think you have to take it. And it's not like, Julius Randle was some beloved, 15-year Knick that, they just hate to see go. He may have not even been extended after this season. So you can understand why they made the move, but it depends. Like, is this going to be like when the Celtics loaded up and things clicked right away? Or is it going to be like when Miami loaded up and it took them, a year or so to build that chemistry, to figure out how to play together? We'll get our first look tonight, but I would say, the Knicks will look different by Thanksgiving than they do tonight, just because they haven't played together yet.
And am I being too cocky? Let's look at some of the other Eastern Conference teams. Am I being too cocky in not worrying really at all right now about Milwaukee nor the Paul George addition to Philly? I just it doesn't move the needle for me. The Knicks ones I'm looking at, and I can see, how they get better, what they're trying to attack for the Celtics, where they might be able to take advantage. But the Paul George thing to Philly, I just I can't get behind it. And is this just me being blinded by the fact that the Celtics always beat them?
I think partially.
Okay. All right, good.
I'm someone, to a fault. I have to respect you if you have a Larry. So I will respect Giannis and what a healthy Giannis is capable of. When I think of the Celtics playoff battles of past, they may have beaten Milwaukee, but he was, in non-Al Horford minutes where he wasn't shutting him down. He just
couldn't stop him.
He's a monster, and he's coming off one of the best individual seasons in NBA history. So the Bucks and Giannis will always have my respect because they've reached the top of the mountain before. They have guys that know how to do it. The Philly thing, I mean, this is just iteration number 10 of the process that this is the roster that's going to do it. I mean, they're all hype. And, granted, they're also big name players, but I mean, listen, a 34, 35-year-old who can't really guard like he used to. They really don't have solid point of attack defense. Their bench is, they're relying on Yabusele, which the Celtics tried to do 10 years ago, and that didn't work out. So I can understand being skeptical over Philly. But Milwaukee just, if Dame is truly in his best shape of his life, I think you have to respect Giannis, at least until we see what it looks like.
All right, let's get back to the Celtics. Let's get back to the Celtics. And honestly, this city needs the Celtics right now after watching the Patriots every week and whatever the Red Sox second half was, and even the Bruins stink right now with the top six forward. So let's look at the Celtics. The city needs them out there. We need to see this. It all begins tonight. but in a weird way, there's not as much intrigue as last year because they didn't need to add anything. They've got the best roster in the NBA. They kept the best roster in the NBA. So what are you most looking forward to this year out of this team, other than, just the regular defending the title?
Yeah, I think just internal growth. I'm interested to see how their two best players have adapted and developed their game, because I think, we're just inching into what most people consider the NBA prime years of their career.
Yeah.
So it's like, if they've been this good already, I'm very excited to see, what elements they bring. I think, internal development of young guys like Walsh, we'll see if, Peyton Pritchard takes another leap, Sam Hauser takes another leap. I just, for the first time in this era, we enter a season without the will they get it done pressure. Now it's, the monkey's off their back. They can play free. They've conquered the mountain. So I just think that change in mindset is really interesting, because we know that Missoula is going to have them locked in. We know they understand the opportunity that's in front of them. But we've never had a season where it's like, are Tatum and Brown going to choke in the biggest stage? It's like all of those criticisms, doubts, those are all gone. So I think I'm just interested to feel what it's like to go through a season and be like, okay, now I'm worried about like a repeat title. Do you know how ridiculous it feels to like, like that sounds like such a cocky Boston masshole thing to say, but it's like, that really is the only thing to worry about, that and injury health. Like, we know the roster fits. We know their style of play works. We know Joe Mazzulla is the guy. It's like, the only things you have to worry about are who's gonna buy the team and can they stay healthy. It's embarrassing how good we have it at the moment.
Yeah, how good a position this is, and it does remind me of something. So I was at a party a few months ago with a lot of high school friends, and so we're just a little too young to really appreciate that Patriots back-to-back in 03 and 04. Remember it, but not really appreciate it. So after a few pops, I was kind of asking the guys around there. I was like, what is the closest it's felt for us seeing a Boston team go back-to-back? And like, they all had the same answer. They didn't talk about the 08 Red Sox that were one game from the World Series. They didn't even talk about the Patriots losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. They all said 08-09 Celtics.
27-2.
27-2. Yeah. And Garnett in Utah, and after that, it's done. And so I want to ask you about that team, because I know you remember it even better than I do. That team looked like they were even better than the year before, and looked like a team that was not messing around. So we weren't probably going to see a 7-gamer in round 1 or 7-gamer in round 2, which is exactly what we did see after Garnett got hurt. Am I off base with that? Was that team that good?
I mean, it's hard to argue against it. I mean, they were just – I'll never forget. I was at my friend's house playing or watching the Celtics play Utah. You watch Garnett go up for that alley-oop. I'm still waiting to hear about how that was just a calf strain, like no big deal. What the hell happened there? And it just goes to show you, like, that's how delicate an NBA season can be. And last year, they survived without Porzingis. I think they were like 31-4 or some 31-7 without Porzingis. Like, I think we all just need to understand that last year's Celtics, the way in which they won and how everything seemed to break their way, like, you get one of those seasons in your lifetime. So you can like, if Al Horford has the Kevin Garnett injury, what happens? Like, you have to appreciate what you have in the moment, because you're one twisted ankle, you're one alley-oop away from your dream being crushed. And I think the biggest difference between this team and that team is, as good as that team was, they lost Posey. Like, they lost pieces. Mm-hmm. This version, it's like, you lost Svi. Like, you lost a guy that didn't really
damn.
Like, you lost guys that didn't really play. So it's like, if you can just find a way to stay healthy, or just navigate your injuries to a point where you're ready to roll by the playoffs, it's like, if they play to their ceiling, just like that 08-09 team, they played to their ceiling, they were untouchable. I see no difference in this team because, again, we just watched this group win 100 games. They broke the NBA record for 20, 30, 40, and 50-point wins. They went 12-2 in back-to-back, 6th best scoring differential in NBA history, more 30-point leads than 10-point deficits. Like we truly witnessed one of the most historically dominant teams the NBA has ever had. So I think it's a little crazy to think you get that type of success back-to-back. So maybe the gap goes from like a 14-game lead to an 8-game lead in the Eastern Conference. But the similarities between the two in terms of their motivation, their hunger to repeat, that I feel like is almost identical.
Talking about a historic team and obviously a historic franchise, and we're going to see all of that come out tonight on Banner Night. And I think one of the things that NBA Twitter, I guess, let's go with, and the NBA media as a whole has really played down most of our lifetimes is the Celtic pride thing. And, that's just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, that you had that in the 60s and the 80s, but nobody cares about that in the age of free agency. And then the Celtics couldn't attract free agents, and now it's color TV and yada, yada, yada. We hear that all the time. But maybe I am too into this kind of stuff, Greenie, because the way I saw these guys play last year and the way someone like Drew Holiday, who had only been there 1 year, who had already won a title, and he's saying, yeah, man, it's different winning it here. Right. Like to me, and specifically hearing it from Missoula, I think is the biggest thing, because here is a guy who's a young guy. He did grow up in New England, grew up in Rhode Island, and he actually buys into this. And it seems like the way they play, they buy into this. Do you feel that too, that there's actual, like, maybe not the Red Auerbach type, but there's real Celtic pride in this team and playing for this city?
I mean, I think it's pretty evident, right? I mean, KP, first thing he said, he talked about it. Holiday, first thing he said about it. I think there is something to your point about Missoula being from Rhode Island, because he's like us. He's
right,
deranged. He's a sicko. Like it's no surprise that he was the guy that got them over the hump, because he understands what it's like to be part of this team and what it means to play for the Celtics. And I think opposing fan bases will roll their eyes. You hear a lot about how, the Patriot way and how that's looking a little fraudulent. Well, the Celtics angle has been true, and there have been correlating titles in every era. So it's like there is something to just the franchise, the mystique, the history. Like, I don't think any 25-year-old All-NBA All-Star is like, I want to go play for the Celtics because of their history. Like, this is incredible. Like, Wick Grossbeck talks about that all the time. I think that's bullshit. But I think once you're in the building and you see how everybody from the front office to the training staff to the game day crew to the coaches to the players to the fan base, like, this is not how it is in every NBA city and every NBA arena. And once, like, just look at what happened at the parade. I mean, every single player to a T was like, this was like, I could not even envision this of being what it was like. And I think when you win in this environment, you become a king for the rest of your life. Like, and I think that may happen in other cities, but not to the level that it happens for the Celtics. And I think when you start to win and you start to embrace that pressure that goes along with it, you start to fully adapt to the idea behind Celtic pride and what it means to play and win as a Celtic. Like you mentioned, Drew Holiday's sacrifice. How about Al Horford, for the first time in his career, openly willing to come off the bench? You have Tatum and Brown, these all NBA superstars, sacrificing and adapting their game for the betterment of the team. Those are all the things that every great Celtics team adapted, and it was rooted in the Red Auerbach, like rules of how to become a champion. So it's unbelievable to see this team in this day and age embrace that, and the results speak for themselves. Like, I can understand why people think it's corny, but I would also like to point to the championship banner that's about to go up tonight and say, maybe there's something to it.
It's only corny if you're not a part of it. So
exactly.
I think it's another thing. And boy, am I excited for Al Horford. I mean, look, I'm excited for all those guys to get it. But you talk about the consummate pro. Does he deserve to be a Hall of Famer? I don't know, but he deserves to be an NBA champion. And now he is. And that's so awesome. Last question for you, Greenie. We talked about Missoula a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
Does he even watch the banner go up tonight? Is he
I think
like
so.
on the iPad?
I think he's
coach?
big. I think he's big into, appreciating the moment and embracing it and understanding the challenge. But the second the lights turn on, I think he has flipped the page. He's into the, nobody cares mentality, but he's a masshole. He's a New England guy. Like it's in his DNA. He'll be emotional just like the rest of us. But the second the ball goes up, I have no doubt, he's ready to lead the charge back up the mountain.
It's almost like with Missoula, you get the mentality of Belichick, but the psychoness of being an actual Celtics fan. And like, what better combination can you have as a coach than that?
Yeah, he has what I would consider probably one of the healthiest mentalities. I think not just of a coach, but of an overall human, right? Like how he embraces pressure and approaches obstacles. Like he wants it hard. He wants it tough. He views that as a privilege to be able to, have these obstacles and, people. He doesn't just, rest on his laurels. Like he is a guy that when the Celtics lose back-to-back games in Atlanta, puts his body through hell and tears his meniscus because he wants the physical abuse to make him a better coach. Like it's stuff like you said, if it's not your coach, you probably think it's corny. For me, it's like he's the best combination of every Celtic coach that was ever successful here, in addition to bringing his own skill and his own sort of swag to the job. And I just, he's younger than me. He's 34, 35 years old. It's like he should be the coach for the rest of his life as long as he wants it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Cannot wait to see that go up tonight. And I can't wait for the stream of consciousness Greenie tweets to be back. That's Barstool Greenie.
I've been getting my preseason reps in. This is why we practice tonight.
Yes, it all starts tonight. Dan Greenberg of Barstool Sports, thanks so much for joining the camp show again. And I can't wait to check in with you throughout the Celtics season. This is going to be a fun ride.
If I make it out of tonight, happy to come on. If I make it through.